Jim Baker, also known as Honest Jim Baker, was a frontiersman, trapper, hunter, Army scout, language interpreter, businessman, and rancher who settled in Colorado and Wyoming in the mid-1800s. He was born on December 19, 1818 in Belleville, St. Clair County, Illinois, a few miles from St. Louis, Missouri. His parents were Phoebe Neely and William Baker, who were Scott-Irish farmers from the Nashville, Tennessee area. They were both born in Tennessee but moved to Illinois as young adults, where they operated a mill along the Sangamon River. When he was around 17, his father sent him to his grandfather in St. Louis for schooling, but he was sent home when it was clear he had no interest in education. Instead, he was much more interested in living a life on the frontier, so he went to the American Fur Company in St. Louis, where he signed up to be a trapper. He was soon hired by Jim Bridger to work for the American Fur Company for a period of 18 months. In May 1838, he left St. Louis by boat and traveled up the Mississippi and Missouri rivers to the Uinta Mountains of present-day Utah and Wyoming. Shortly thereafter, he led a pack train to the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous, at which trappers and mountain men sold their furs, hides, and replenished their supplies. Baker learned quickly from Bridger and hunted with another famed frontiersman, Kit Carson, in the Uinta Mountains of what are now Wyoming and Utah until his contract ended in 1840. In May 1841, Baker traveled with the Bartleson Bidwell Party headed for California. It was the first wagon train to travel overland on the Oregon Trail. Baker traveled from the Green River to Bridger's camp at the Henry's Fork, arriving in early August. Bridger, who was worried about his overdue associate Henry Freed, sent Baker and others to search for the lost party and to warn them of increased hostility among the Plains Indians. On August 21, 1841, Baker and another man were hunting across the river from where Freed's camp had been established. While they were hunting, they saw an ominous sign of a rising cloud of dust in the mountains, which they rushed to investigate. When they arrived, they discovered a fierce battle. Freed and his company of 23 trappers were engaged with a combined force of hundreds of Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Sioux Indians. Freed would be killed just shortly after the conflict began, and with no obvious second in command, Baker took charge of the battle. He coordinated defensive positions and fought back the ongoing attacks that extended over the next few days. The trappers hid behind stumps, dug pits, and created a defensive barrier of dead horses and logs. The battle ended after a Native American chief's horse was shot and fell over. In total, 4 trappers were killed along with most of the trappers' horses, and more than 100 horses died from both sides. Legend has it that between 35 to 100 Native Americans were killed, but those numbers may have been exaggerated as the number grew each time the story was told. Regardless of how many men fell that day, Baker and other survivors made a brave stand against a vicious and determined enemy. The survivors returned to Bridger's camp on the Green River on August 27th. The mountain where this battle took place was later renamed Battle Mountain. Baker continued to hunt and trap in the Henry's Fork area independent of a fur company, but he remained close friends and continued to spend his time with Kit Carson, Jim Bridger, and his brother John. He was known for his skills as a marksman, archer, horseman, tracker, hunter, and lariat thrower. When hunting with a group of people, Baker generally took the lead and was the fastest rider. He was also a competent Native American Sign Language communicator and spoke a number of Native American languages. Baker was also relied heavily on as a guide and was so talented that he could lead parties even where there were no evident trails. He had a good knowledge of the geography of the West, guiding others around rivers, lakes, canyons, and other difficult geographical features. In addition to being an exceptional frontiersman, he was also a good man who helped others. Notable author of the time, James Lee Humphreyville, described Jim Baker as a talented frontiersman with a kind heart. He said, "Next to Jim Bridger, he was the most intrepid, skillful, and accomplished plainsman and mountaineer in all that region. He was a generous, noble-hearted specimen of the trapper type, who would peril his life for a friend at any time, or divide with him his last morsel of food." Baker was particularly friendly with the Shoshone tribe and camped with them in the Wind River area near present-day Medicine Bow, Wyoming. During the time Baker stayed with the Shoshone, the daughter of the band's chief, Marina, and a girl named Winona were kidnapped by a group of Blackfeet. Baker rescued both of the young women and would marry Marina in October 1847. On the day they were married, she gave her groom a bear claw necklace as an emblem of bravery. Baker continued to live with his wife's tribe, as was common when mountain men married a Native American woman. Baker was adopted into the Shoshone tribe and given the name Red-Haired Shoshone. Over the years, he defended his adopted family and engaged in conflicts with Cheyenne, Sioux, and Crows. He was said to have never been wounded in battle, yet it was also said that his body was covered with scars from battles, bear fights, and riding accidents. He continued throughout his life to serve as a translator, guide, scout, and dedicated friend to those who knew him. Jim Baker was a born adventurer who demonstrated his bravery and skill as a frontiersman throughout his life, making his mark as a legend of the West. Be sure to comment your thoughts below, like this video, and subscribe for more legends of the West.